Hey y'all, what's up? I'm just gonna read the Bible, uh, starting with Deuteronomy 10:2, verse 10. Now I'd stay on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, as I did the first time, and the Lord listened to me at this time also. It was not his will to destroy you. Go, the Lord said to me, and lead the people on their way, so that they may enter and possess the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. Fear the Lord. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and to observe the Lord's commands and decrees that I am giving you today for your own good. To the Lord your God belong to the Lord your God belong the heavens, even the highest heavens, the earth and everything in it. Yet the Lord set his affection on your ancestors and loved them, and he chose you, their descendants, above all the nations as it is today. Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff necked any longer, for the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, almighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. For the Lord your God, and serve him. Hold fast to him, and take your oaths in his name. He is one you praise, he is your God, who performed for you those great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eyes. Your ancestors who went down in Egypt were 70 in all. And now all the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. Love and obey the Lord. Love the Lord and keep his requirements, his decrees, his laws, and commands always. Remember today that your children were not the ones who saw and experienced the discipline of the Lord your God. His majesty, his mighty hand, his outstretched arm, the signs he performed, and the things he did in the heart of Egypt, both to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his whole country, what he did to the Egyptian army, to its horses and chariots, how he overwhelmed them with the waters of the Red Sea as they were pursuing you, and how the Lord brought lasting ruin on them. It was not your children who saw what he did for you in the wilderness until you arrived at this place, and what he did to Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab the Reubenite, when the earth opened its mouth right in the middle of all Israel and swallowed them up with their households, their tents, and every living thing that belonged to them. But it was your own eyes that saw all these great things the Lord has done. Observe therefore all the commands I am giving you today, so that you may have the strength to go in and take over the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, and so that you may live long in the land the Lord swore to your ancestors to give them and their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. The land you are entering to take over is not like the land of Egypt, from which you have come, where you planted your seed and irrigated it by foot, as in a vegetable garden. But the land you are crossing the Jordan to take possession of is a land of mountains and valleys that drinks rain from heaven. It is a land the Lord your God cares for. The eyes of the Lord your God are continually on it, from the beginning of the year to its end. So if you faithfully obey, I am giving you today to love the Lord your God, to serve him with all your heart, with all your soul, then I will send rain on you. So that's Deuteronomy, to end of verse 14. What I do, right, after reading like 2 pages, sometimes I miss some symbolism. So I'd be asking questions to ChatGPT, like taking pictures. She summarizes it a lot. It helps me understand it a lot more, especially in like very confusing passages. You're now reading Deuteronomy 10:11, where Moses moved from reminding Israel of their failures to calling them to respond to God's mercy. Deuteronomy 10:12-22, what does God want? Verse 12 asks one of the Bible's greatest questions. Now, Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you? Moses answered those five things. Fear the Lord, walk in his ways, love him, serve him with all your heart and soul, keep his commands. Notice the order. Obedience is meant to follow from a relation of God and reverence for God. Circumcise your heart, verse 16. This is a metaphor. Moses isn't talking about physical circumcision. He means remove the hardness of your heart and become fully devoted to God. The prophets later repeat the idea, and in the New Testament, Paul speaks of a circumcision of the heart by the Spirit. Romans 2:29. God's character. Verses 17 through 19 are beautiful. God is God is God of gods and Lord of lords. He shows no partiality. He takes no bribes. He defends the fatherless and widow. He loves the foreigner and provides for them. This shows both God's greatness and his compassion. Deuteronomy 11, obey. Moses tells Israel to remember everything God has done, the Exodus, the miracles, the wilderness, God's discipline. And he contrasts Egypt with Canaan. Egypt. In Egypt, they were irrigated fields. In Egypt, they irrigated fields through human labor. Canaan. Promised depends on rain from heaven. That teaches Israel a lesson. Their success will depend on trusting God, not merely on their own effort. Blessings for obedience. Moses says that if Israel loves God and follows him, God will send rain, grow crops will grow, livestock will flourish, they will have enough food. This is part of the covenant God made specifically with the nation of Israel. For Christians today, these promises are not guarantees of material wealth. The New Testament teaches that faithful believers may experience both prosperity and suffering. The underlying principle remains God is faithful and worthy of trust. Verse worth remembering. Deuteronomy 10:12 says, "What the Lord your God asks of you, but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, to love him, to serve the Lord all your heart and with all your soul." That verse summarizes much of Deuteronomy. Moses isn't calling Israel to mere rule keeping; he's calling them to wholeheartedly devotion to the God who rescued them. One thing I've noticed keep as you've been reading is that Moses keeps returning to the same message from different angles. Remember what God has done. Love him with your whole heart. Let obedience grow out of that love. As you continue to Deuteronomy, those themes become even more prominent. All right, we're reading Deuteronomy 11:15. On your land in its season, both autumn and spring rains, that you may gather in your grain, new wine and olive oil. I will provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be satisfied. Be careful, or you will be enticed to turn away and worship other gods and bow down to them. And the Lord's anger will burn against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that it will not rain, and the ground will yield no produce. And you will soon perish from the good land the Lord is giving you. Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home and walk you along the road. When you lie down and when you get up, write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. That your days and the days of your children may be many, the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors, as many as the days that the heavens are above the earth. If you can carefully observe all these commands I am giving you to follow, to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, and to hold fast to him, then the Lord will drive out all these nations before you, and you will dispose nations larger and stronger than you. Every place where you set your foot will be yours. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the Euphrates River to the Mediterranean Sea. No one will be able to stand against you. The Lord your God, as he promised you, will put terror and fear of you on the whole land wherever you go. See, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing if you obey the commands of the Lord your God that I am giving you today. The curse if you disobey the commands of the Lord your God. Turn away from the way that I command you today by following other gods, which you have not known. When the Lord your God has brought you into the land you are entering to possess, you are to proclaim on Mount Gerizim the blessings, and on Mount Ebal the curses. As you know, these mountains are across the Jordan, westward towards the setting sun, near the great trees of Moreh, in the territory of those Canaanites living in the Arabah, in the vicinity of Gilgal. You are about to cross the Jordan to enter and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you. When you have taken it over, you are living there. Be sure you obey all the decrees and laws I am setting before you today. The one place of worship. These are the decrees and laws you must be careful to follow in the land that the Lord your God of your ancestors has given you to possess. As long as you live in the land, destroy completely all the places on the high mountains, on the hills, and under every spreading tree where the nations are dispossessing worship their gods, break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, and burn their Asherah poles in the fire. Cut down the idols of their gods and wipe out their names from those places. You must not worship the Lord your God in their way. We are to seek the place the Lord your God will choose from among all your tribes to put his name there for his dwelling. To that place you must go. There will bring your burnt offerings and sacrifices and your tithes and special gifts that you have vowed to give in your freewill offerings, the firstborn of your herds and flocks. There in the presence of the Lord your God, you and your family shall eat and shall rejoice in everything you have put your hand to, because the Lord your God has blessed you. You are not to do as we do here today, everyone doing as they see fit, since you have not yet reached the resting place and the inheritance the Lord your God is giving you. But you will cross the Jordan and settle in the land the Lord your God is giving you as inheritance, and he will rest from all your enemies around you, so that you will live in safety. Then to the place the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name, there you are to bring everything I command you, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your special gifts, and all the choice possessions you have vowed to the Lord. And there rejoice before the Lord your God, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levites from your towns, who have not allot, allotment or inheritance of their own. Be careful not to sacrifice your burnt offerings anywhere you please. Offer them only at the place the Lord will choose in one of your tribes. And there observe everything I command you. Nevertheless, you may slaughter your animals in any of your own towns and eat as much of the meat as you want, as if it were gazelle or deer, according to the blessing the Lord your God gives you. Both the ceremonially unclean and the clean may eat it, but you must not eat the blood. Pour it on the ground like water. You must not eat it in your own towns. The tithe of your grain and new wine and olive oil and the firstborn of your herds. Good, I'm summarizing it. You're beginning Deuteronomy 12, which marks a major transition in the book. Up to now, Moses has reminded Israel of their history and urged them to love and obey God. I'll begin giving practical instructions for life in the Promised Land. Deuteronomy 12, 1-4. Destroy false worship. God commands Israel to tear down pagan altars, smash sacred stones, burn the Asherah poles, wooden symbols used in Canaanite worship, destroy all idols, erase the names of their gods from the land. The command was intended to keep Israel from gradually adopting the religious practices of the Canaanites. Throughout the Old Testament, one of Israel's greatest temptations was mixing the worship of the true God with idol worship. Notice verse 4. You must not worship the Lord your God in their way. This teaches an important principle. God cares not only that he is worshipped, but also how he is worshipped. God cares not only that he is worshipped, but also how he is worshipped. Uh, Israel wasn't to borrow pagan practices and attach God's name to them. Deuteronomy 12, 5, verse 5 through 14. One place of worship. Another major theme appears here. Instead of every family offering sacrifices wherever they wanted, God says he will choose one place where his name will dwell. Later in Israel's history, this became Jerusalem, where the temple was built. The purpose was to keep worship centered on God, prevent people from inventing their own religious practices, preserve unity among the tribes. Verse 15 through 19. Ordinary meals versus sacrifices. God makes an important distinction. Israel could slaughter animals for ordinary food in their own towns. They did not have to bring every animal to the sanctuary. However, sacrifice and offerings belonged at the place God chose. They were not to eat the blood because blood represents life and belonged to God, a theme you'll see again in Leviticus and later connected to Christ's sacrifice. The main lesson. The central message of Deuteronomy 12 is worship God in his own term, not ours. Moses is praying Israel to enter a land full of competing religions. His concern is that they remain completely devoted to the Lord instead of blending his worship with the surrounding cultures. As you continue through Deuteronomy, you'll notice Moses repeatedly returning to the same three ideas. Love the Lord with all your heart. Do not follow other gods. Obey his commands because he rescued you first. Those themes form the backbone of the rest of the book. Okay, now we're at Deuteronomy 12:18. Well, the firstborn of your herds and flocks, or whatever you have vowed to give, or your freewill offerings or special gifts. Instead, you are to eat them in the presence of the Lord your God at the place the Lord your God will choose. You, your sons and daughters, and male and female servants, Levites from your towns, and you are to rejoice before the Lord your God, everything you put your hand to. Be careful not to neglect the Levites as long as you live in your land. When the Lord your God has enlarged your territory as he promised you, and you crave meat and say, I would like some meat, then you may eat as much of it as you want. If the place where the Lord your God chooses to put his name is too far away from you, you may slaughter in animals from the herds and flocks the Lord has given you. As I have commanded you, and in your own towns you may eat as much of them as you want. Eat them as you would gazelle or deer. Both the ceremonially unclean and the clean may eat. But be sure you do not eat the blood, because the blood is the life, and you must not eat the life with the meat. You must not eat the blood, pour it out on the ground like water. Do not eat it so it may go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is right in the eyes of the Lord. But take your consecrated things and whatever you have vowed to give, and go to the place the Lord will choose. Present your burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord your God, both the meat and the blood. The blood of your sacrifices must be poured beside the altar of the Lord your God. But you may eat the meat. Be careful to obey all these regulations I am giving you, so that it may always go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is good, the right in the eyes of the Lord your God. The Lord your God will cut out off before you the nations you are about to invade and dispossess. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? You will do the same. You must not worship the Lord your God in the same way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things the Lord hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. See what that you do all I command you. Do not add or take away from it. Worshipping other gods. If a prophet or one who foretells by dreams appears among you and announces to you a sign or wonder, and if the sign or wonder is spoken taken place takes place, the prophet says, "Let us follow other gods you have not known, and let us worship them." You must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart, with all your soul. It is the Lord your God you must follow, and him you must revere. Keep his commands and obey him. Serve him and hold fast to him. The prophet or dreamer must be put to death for inciting rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. The prophet or dreamer tried to turn you away from the way the Lord your God commanded you to follow. You must purge the evil from among you. If your very own brother or your son or daughter or the wife you love, or the closest friend secretly entices you, saying, "Let us go worship other gods that neither you nor your ancestors have known, gods of the people around you, whether near or far, from one end of the land to the other. Do not yield to them or listen to them. Show them no pity. Do not spare them or shield them. You must certainly put them to death. Your hand must be the first in putting them to death, and then the hands of all the people stone them to death. Oh, hands of all the people stone them to death, because they tried to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Then all Israel will hear and be afraid, and no one among you will do such an evil thing again. You hear it if you hear it, said one about one of the towns Lord your God is giving you, live in, that troublemakers have risen among you and have led the people of their town astray, saying, "Let us go and worship other gods you have not known." And you must inquire, probe, and investigate thoroughly. And if it is true and if it is true, and it has been proven that this detestable thing has been done among you, you must certainly put to the sword all who live in that town. You must destroy it completely, both its people and its livestock. You are to gather all the plunder of the town into the middle of the public square, completely burn the town and all its plunder as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. That town is to remain a ruin forever, never to. You've reached Deuteronomy 13, another chapter that many readers find difficult because it contains very severe commands, focuses on one central issue: protect Israel from being led away from the one true God. Moses gives three situations if a prophet performs miracles but teaches another God. This is a remarkable passage because God says even if the sign or the miracle happens, Israel must reject the prophet. He says, "Let us follow other gods." Lesson is that truth is not determined by miracles. A genuine miracle or supernatural event is not enough by itself. The message must also agree with God's revealed truth. The principle contains into the New Testament. Jesus warned that false prophets could perform signs and wonders, Matthew 24 verse 24, and Paul warned against false gospels, Galatians 1 verse 8. If someone close to you tries to lead you to idols, verse 6 through 11. Moses lists the hardest possible examples: your brother, your son or daughter, your wife, your closest friend. Israel was commanded not to follow them into idolatry, even because of family loyalty. Point is that love for God must come before even our closest human relationships. An entire Israelite town turns to idol worship, verse 12 through 18. If after a thorough investigation an Israelite city has abandoned the Lord for other gods, the city was to be destroyed. This is one of the harshest passages in Deuteronomy. Why such severe penalties? Remember the historical setting. Israel was entering Canaan as God's covenant nation. God had chosen Israel to preserve the knowledge of the true God until the Messiah would come. Idolatry wasn't viewed merely as holding a different opinion. It was covenant treason that involved child sacrifice, ritual prostitution, and other practices God had repeatedly condemned. The survival of Israel's covenant with God was at stake. Does this apply to Christians today? No. Under the new covenant, Jesus and the apostles never instructed Christians to execute idolaters or false teachers. Instead, we reject false teaching to warn people. Church discipline may remove someone from fellowship if they persist in serious sin without repentance. Judgment belongs to God and the civil authorities, not the church. Jesus even rebuked his disciples when they wanted to call down fire on people who rejected him. Luke 9, verse 54 through 56. Main lesson: Deuteronomy 13 teaches that loyalty to God comes before miracles, loyalty to God comes before family, loyalty to God comes before culture or community. For Christians, the application is spiritual rather than military. Remain faithful to Christ even when persuasive, impressive experiences or close relationships tempt you to abandon Him. That's deep. That is deep stuff. Wow. Right. I wanted to take a little break, but it's pretty nice. Deuteronomy 13, verse 17. Be rebuilt. And none of the condemned things are to be found in your hands. The Lord will turn from his fierce anger, will show you mercy, and will have compassion on you. He will increase your numbers based as he promised on oath to your ancestors, because you obeyed the Lord your God by keeping all his commands that I am giving you today, and doing what is right in his eyes. Clean and unclean food. You are the children of God, the Lord. You are the children of the Lord your God. Do not cut yourselves or shave the front of your heads for the dead, for you are people holy to the Lord. Out of all the peoples on the face of the earth, the Lord has chosen you to be his treasured possession. Do not eat any detestable things. These are the animals you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roe deer, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. You may eat any animal that has a divided hoof and that chews the cud. However, of those that chew the cud or have been of divided hoof, you may not eat the camel, the rabbit, or the hyrax, although they chew the cud. They do not have a divided hoof. They are ceremonially unclean for you. The pig is also unclean, although it has a divided hoof. It does not chew the cud. You are not to eat their meat or touch their carcass. Of all the creatures living in the water, you may eat any that has fins and scales. But anything that does not have fins and scales, you may not eat. It is unclean. You may eat any clean bird, but these you may not eat: the eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, the red kite, the black kite, and any kind of falcon, any kind of raven, the horned owl, the screech owl, the gull, any kind of hawk, the little owl, the great owl, the white owl, the desert owl, the osprey, the cormorant, the stork, any kind of heron, the hoopoe, hoopoe, and the bat. All flying insects are unclean to you. Do not eat them, but any winged creatures that is clean you may eat. Do not eat anything you find already dead. You may give it to the foreigner residing in any of your towns. They may eat it. Or you may sell it to any other foreigner. You are people holy to the Lord your God. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. That keeps coming up. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. And I read that earlier. I looked it up too. It was like a pagan practice back in ancient Israel days. They used to cook goats to in its mother's milk. They milk the mother and boil the milk, and then they dip the goat in it. And yeah, it was for the sake of their false gods. Tis, be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. Eat the tenth of your grain. new wine and olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks in the presence of the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling place for his name. You may learn to revere the Lord your God always. But if that place is too distant and you have been blessed by the Lord your God and by the Lord your God, and cannot carry your tithe because the place where the Lord will choose to put his name is so far away, and exchange your tithe for silver, and take the silver with you, and go to the place the Lord your God will choose. Use the silver to buy whatever you like cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you wish. Then you and your household shall eat there the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice. And do not neglect the Levites living in your towns, for they have no allotment or inheritance of their own. At the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce, and store it in your towns, that the Levites who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be satisfied, until the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. The year for canceling debts. At the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. This is how it's to be done. Every creditor shall cancel any loan they have made to a fellow Israelite. They shall not require payment from anyone among their own people, because the Lord's time for canceling debts has been proclaimed. You may require payment from a foreigner, but you must cancel any debt your fellow Israelite owes you. However, there need to be no poor people among you, for in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess as your inheritance, He will richly bless you. If only you fully obey the Lord your God and are careful to follow these commands I am giving you to today, for the Lord your God will bless you as He promised, and you will lend to many nations but will borrow from none. You will rule over many nations, but none will rule over you. If anyone is poor among your fellow Israelites in any of the towns of the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted toward them. Rather, be open-handed and freely lend them whatever they need. Be careful not to harbor this wicked thought. The seventh year, the year for canceling debts is near, so that you do not show ill will toward the needy among your fellow Israelites and give them nothing. They may appeal to the Lord against you, and you will be found guilty of sin. Give generously to. It's going to be the last one before I take a break. You've now reached Deuteronomy 14 through 15, where Moses shifts from laws about avoiding adultery to laws about living as God's holy people. These chapters are much more practical. Deuteronomy 14, Israel is God's treasured people. Everything that follows is based on this identity. You are a people holy to the Lord your God. The commands are not merely rules, they are meant to reflect God's character. Clean and unclean foods. This chapter repeats the dietary laws first given in Leviticus. Animals Israel could eat generally animals with split hooves that chew the cud, cattle, sheep, goats, and deer, fish fish with fins and scales, certain birds. These food laws distinguished Israel from the surrounding nations and taught them holiness through daily life. For Christians, most traditions believe these dietary restrictions are no longer binding because Jesus declared all foods clean. Mark 7, verse 19. And Peter's vision in Acts 10 reinforces the Gentiles believer were not under these food laws. Tithing, verse 14, or chapter 14, verse 23 to 29. Israel was instructed to give a tenth of their produce, celebrate before God with joy, care for the Levites, foreigners, and orphans and widows. One purpose of the tithe is stated plainly, so that you may learn to revere your God, your Lord, always. Giving was meant to cultivate trust and worship, not merely fund religious activities. Deuteronomy 15, beginning. This chapter begins with a remarkable command. Every 7 years, debts were canceled. Israelite creditors were to forgive debts owed to fellow Israelites. This law prevents families from remaining trapped in poverty generation after generation. God even says there need be no poor people among you. That wasn't a guarantee that poverty would never exist. Rather, if Israel obeyed God's law, generosity and justice, widespread poverty would be greatly reduced. Open hand generosity. One of the strongest commandments in this chapter is do not be hard headed or tight fisted, rather be open handed. God warns against people refusing to help someone simply because the seventh year of debt cancellation is approaching. Main theme. These chapters teach that God's people should be holy in how they live, joyful in worship, generous with their possessions, compassionate towards the poor, different from the surrounding culture. For Christians, the specific ceremonial laws such as dietary restrictions are generally understood to have been fulfilled in Christ. But the underlying principle of holiness, generosity, worship, and care for those in need remain central throughout the New Testament, making steady progress. As you move through Deuteronomy, you'll notice Moses repeatedly returned to one message: love the Lord wholeheartedly, remember what he does, let that shape how you treat other people. Fabulous. Alright, guys. I think that's it for today. I might read later. But that was fun. Thank y'all for watching. See you in the next live.